Hey, Shalom, Akim Shalom. Before I begin this lesson, I want to give all glory, honor, and praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachakwadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who taught me this truth. And Shalom to the hopeful elect. Shalom. All right, so I want to, this video is going to be a response to this comment that was left on my video. The video is Nero is coming after all 12 tribes. And in that video, I mentioned how, so-called Hispanics are going through hell with the deportations, all right? And that soon so-called blacks are also going to be targeted by Nero, okay? And how basically I was saying that we're all the same people, man. All right, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, you are the Israelites of the Bible, okay? And this topic, other brothers have covered this topic very much so that it is, it can be said that it's common knowledge and the truth that the so-called Hispanics and Native Americans are Israelites, okay? Because there is a lot of proof and there's a lot of history and scriptures to prove and back this all up, okay? Just because it's not talked about a lot, doesn't mean it's not true, all right? Which, I'm going to go into what her, her comment was. She said, prove that they are the lost tribes. You can't just say they are when they are not under the curses, which is false. They are definitely under the curses, man. All right? They are definitely under the curses, and we'll go into that, all right? And then she continues, they weren't enslaved with us, okay? Now, the thing you got to remember is that there was a split in the kingdom. Okay, so that's why this chart shows, it says Northern Kingdom, right, which is the Latin tribes and the Native Americans, and you got the Southern Kingdoms, which is the so-called blacks. Okay, the reason we had separated as a nation is, after Solomon sinned, the nation was split in two. Okay, and I'm gonna get a quick precept on that here. This is Ecclesiasticus 47:21. So the kingdom was divided, okay, right, into the northern and southern kingdom. It said, and out of Ephraim ruled a rebellious kingdom. All right, right. So, the northern kingdom had wicked rulership, all right? And, they went off and worshipped idols. And that's why, they ended up going into slavery. Okay, and we're going to go into it, and then we're going to link it up through the scriptures on how, these people are actually the Hispanics, these lost tribes, because she calls them the lost tribes, all right, which is not true because the world calls them lost. They're not lost. They're right here in America, all right? The scripture says we would be in Babylon oppressed together, all right, which I talked about in that last video. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started here. Let's go ahead and start with 2nd Ezra 13. This is 2nd Ezra 13. And we're going to start at verse 39. And it reads, and whereas thou sawest that he gathered another peaceable multitude unto him, those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king. All right, Hosea the king was the last king of the northern kingdom. All right, it says, whom Salmanasar, the king of Assyria, led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land. Okay, and now we're going to read about, this scripture in the book of 2 Kings, okay, chapter 17 and verse 3. Okay, it says, against him came up Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, and Hoshea became his servant and gave him presents. And the king of Assyria found conspiracy in Hoshea, for he had sent messengers to So king of Egypt, and brought no present to the king of Assyria, as he had done year by year, right? So these presents that he's supposed to bring to the king of Assyria is tribute, all right? Basically a tax that he had to pay, okay? It says, therefore the king of Assyria shut him up and bound him in prison. Then the king of Assyria came up throughout all the land. And actually, we'll stop right there. All right, so he bound him up in prison. Okay, and then actually, we'll go ahead and keep it going here. It says, then the king of Assyria came up throughout all the land and went up to Samaria and besieged it 3 years. So, you can imagine, the northern kingdom, they had their kingdom set up, and then these guys showed up ready for war, these Assyrians, okay, under the leadership of King Salmanasar, all right, which, to besiege means to surround a place, to get ready to take it over, okay? So you had these soldiers, they probably had their spears, their weapons, ready to besiege, right? The word besiege means to surround a place with armed forces in order to capture it or force its surrender, right? Basically to lay siege to, all right? Second definition, crowd around oppressively, surround and harass, right? Which is more than harass. They're getting ready to, take you over. If you're not with that, then you're just going to get put to death, all right? So let's go into that. And, you could read Deuteronomy 28. It says our people will be, besieged, all right? But let's continue. 2 Kings, all right? Verse 5, then the king of Assyria came up throughout all the land and went up to Samaria, which Samaria is the capital of the northern kingdom, by the way. Okay? And I think I got a map for that, if you bear with me. Actually, I do not. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Let's go back. And besieged it 3 years. Verse 6, in the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria took Samaria and carried Israel away into Assyria and placed them in Halah and in Habor by the river of Gozan and in the cities of the Medes, right? So this Halah and Habor, we can see it on this map here. Actually, right here. Okay, this Gozam, okay, which it mentioned Salakia. It says Gozan, right, by the river of Gozan. Okay, so you can see the map. So basically, we were next to this, these rivers. Okay, and that's why I said he carried them over the waters. Okay, so we ended up here in Gozan. Okay, so now let's go back. In the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria took Samaria and carried Israel away into Assyria and placed them in Halah and in Habor by the river of Gozan and in the cities of the Medes. For so it was that the children of Israel had sinned against Yahweh their power. Okay, because remember the covenant in Deuteronomy 28. All right, if you break that covenant, all right, this is what's going to happen, right? As a nation, if we go off, we go into slavery. Okay, it says, which have brought them up out of the land of Egypt from under the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and had feared other gods. All right, who was worshiping these idols, being wicked. All right, so the Lord, sent Assyria against us. And verse 8, and walked in the statutes of the heathen, whom Yahweh cast out from before the children of Israel and of the kings of Israel, which they had made. Okay, so, basically, that's what happened during the northern kingdom. when the northern kingdom, uh, when their final ruler, Hosea, was in charge, that's when the Assyrians came up against the northern kingdom, right, for going off. The Lord sent them against us. They took us into captivity, all right, and then this is the story that we're reading about here in Second Esdras, okay? So now we're going to go back to Second Esdras 13 with that established, and we'll keep reading, and we'll get the whole picture, all right? Those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king, right? Hosea is Hosea, right? Whom Salmanessar, the king of Assyria, led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, right, to that by that river Gozan, and so came they into another land. But they took this counsel among themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt. Okay, so let's look at a world map real quick. Okay, and I don't got one pulled up, so I'll pull one up here. World map. Okay, and actually, didn't I have a world map? There it is. So basically, man, all right, everything to the east of Africa, right, starting here all the way over here, everybody's lived in these areas, man. Okay, so the only place this could be talking about where never mankind dwelt is talking about the Americas. Okay, that's why in school they say Christopher Columbus discovered America, which is a lie, because America was actually discovered long before then. Okay, so let's go back. And King Solomon came over here, all right, which we could read about in a bit, but let's get back to where we were in Second Esdras. All right, this is Second Esdras 13 and verse 41 again. It says, "But they took this counsel among themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt, that they might there keep their statutes which they never kept in their own land." Right? Why? Because they, at the time, they had wicked rulers, man. All right, and there was a lot of wickedness in the northern kingdom. Which again, that's why the Lord put us in slavery. It says, "And they entered into Euphrates by the narrow places of the river." Okay, which I'm going to show you a map. Okay, here's the Euphrates River. Okay, so basically we ended up going in here on a boat, and then we went down the river, and if you follow this Euphrates River, this will actually take you to the ocean. Okay, which I could show you with this world map here. Okay, you take it here to the Persian Gulf, which is here, and then boom, you go through here, and now you're in the ocean. Okay, now watch this. Let's go back. Verse 43, "And they entered into Euphrates by the narrow places of the river. For the Most High then showed signs for them and held still the flood till they were passed over." Right, so the Lord held still the flood till they were passed over, right? So this flood is called a Goha's current, which, let me show you here. So once they go through the Persian Gulf and they get out into the ocean, right, to get to the Americas, you're going to have to go down, sail down this way, right, because they had sailboats. And they will go down, and then they have to go past Africa, right, to get to the Americas. But when they get to here, this thing called a Goha's current, because here you got, 3 oceans meeting here. And it's this crazy strong current, basically will push you all the way back. So if you try to cross this area on a sailboat, it's incredibly difficult, man. All right, it will push you back. It's really, that's why the Lord had to stop the flood. All right, as it reads in the scripture. Let me get a picture for that. Goha's current, so I can show you. All right. See if we can get a. Here we go. Great illustration. Let me pull that up separate so you can see it. So this is the tip of Africa down here. So when you try to pass, you know, you can see how it's just gonna like push you back this way because you got the water coming here and getting pushed that way. You got an ocean here. You got all these eddies forming, right? These little whirlpools. Is very, very hard to cross. Okay, so it's a miracle. The Lord did it, man. Just like He parted the Red Sea when we were, being chased by Pharaoh in the land of Egypt. All right, so too the Lord held still the flood, man, so we could pass through. Okay, let me get back to the map. So we could pass through this area, this Agulhas Current, and make it to the Americas, man. Okay, now let's go back and continue reading there. And verse 45, for through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half. And the same region is called Arsareth. You see? So, it wasn't called America back then, man. Because, this is the land where nobody dwelt. Back then it was known as Arsareth. All right? And for proof of that, I got the Jewish Encyclopedia open right here. All right? And here we have the word Arzareth. All right? And it reads, the name of the land beyond the great river, far away from the habitation of man, in which the 10 tribes of Israel will dwell, observing the laws of Moses until the time of the restoration, according to 4th Esdras 13 and 40, verse 45, right? Which, this is the Bible that Christopher Columbus read back then. It was called the Latin Vulgate, or it's called the Latin Vulgate. But basically in the Spanish Bible it's the same. Instead of saying, 1st and 2nd Esdras, it says 3rd and 4th Esdras. But it's the same thing as 2nd Esdras. All right, so 4th Esdras is 2nd Esdras, chapter 13, verse 45. It says, Columbus identified America with this land. Okay? So, as we just read there, for through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half, and the same region is called Arsareth, all right? Or also known as America, okay? That's why Christopher Columbus, right? Also known as Cristobal Colon, right? Which that's his real name. He came over here because he knew what was over here, man, all right? And he was reading the scriptures, and he knew the 10 tribes were over here, man. All right, and these Edomites had that same perpetual hatred back then. All right, which is why Christopher Columbus brought Hebrew interpreters. Okay, all these things you can look up, man. He brought Hebrew interpreters. All right, he was reading the scriptures. All right, so he knew that we were over here. All right. Let's see. So yeah, man, that's basically it. That's how the Hispanics and Native Americans got over here, man, because when Cristobal Colon came over here, we were the only people here, man. All right, so it has to be the so-called Latinos, man, and the so-called Native Americans. It can't be any other people, man, according to the scriptures. You see? All right, which, it said the journey took a year and a half. What we're going to do now is we're going to read a small passage in the book of 2 Kings, chapter 10. And we're going to read verse 18 through 25. This is talking about how, King Solomon sent his navy over here. Okay, so, this place called the Americas, also known as Arsareth, this place was known about. All right, but nobody dwelt here, right? It says where never mankind dwelt, right? doesn't mean that people didn't come here, right? Well, we know that it was very difficult to get here. All right, so the only people we know that got here, all right, that we believe got here was King Solomon and his navy. All right, he sent his navy over here. All right, which I'm gonna let the scriptures say it. All right, because it's pretty detailed here. So this is 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 18. It says, "Moreover, the king made a great throne of ivory and overlaid it with the best gold. The throne had 6 steps, and the top of the throne was round behind. And there were stays on either side on the place of the seat, and 2 lions stood beside the stays. And 12 lions stood there on the one side, and on the other upon the 6 steps. There was not the like made in any kingdom. And all King Solomon's drinking vessels were of gold, and all the vessels of the house of the forest of Lebanon were of pure gold. None were of silver. It was nothing accounted of in the days of Solomon." Right? You see, it was nothing accounted of in the days of Solomon. It wasn't even a big deal, man. That's how rich Solomon was. He had gold drinking vessels, man. So he was drinking out of gold cups. All the vessels in his house were pure gold, none of silver, right? So he was so rich, you know, Solomon didn't even need silver. That's how rich he was. He just had all pure gold, man. All right, for his drinking vessels and his, that's incredible riches, man. The scriptures tell us he was very rich. All right, which makes perfect sense that he would be able to fund these type of voyages over here. Okay, right? Because we know Cristobal Colon got funding from the monarchs to come over here during the time when the Spanish Empire was, very strong, and so they had a lot of wealth. Okay, but when they came over here, they didn't know how to survive. They needed the natives to help them out, and the natives help them out. And again, that's the whole. You already know what happened. Esau took our help for granted and stabbed us in the back. Okay, but King Solomon was the richest man in the world. Okay, and our nation, King David has subdued the nation, so our nation was the ruling empire of the world. And so King Solomon sent his navy over here, okay, which is going to talk about this is verse 22. "For the king had at sea a navy of Tarshish with the navy of Hiram. Once in 3 years came the navy of Tarshish, bringing gold and silver, ivory, and apes and peacocks. So King Solomon exceeded all the kings of the earth for riches and for wisdom. And all the earth sought to Solomon to hear his wisdom, which the Most High had put in his heart. And they brought every man his present, vessels of silver and vessels of gold, and garments and armor and spices, horses and mules, a rate year by year." Right, because they were paying tributary. They were Salaki. They were paying tribute to us. They were paying. That's their tax. Okay, just like when Northern Kingdom went into slavery under Assyria. All right, the whole world, um, you know, was tribute to King Solomon. Okay, which King Solomon came over here, or he sent his navy over here, basically to get gold and all types of things and goods and bring them back to Israel. Okay, so with all that being said, it talks about how our people went into slavery in Assyria. Okay, so notice after the split, okay, is the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom were separate from each other. Okay, and this is a carving of the northern kingdom going through slavery. Okay, now this was before the time of cameras and smartphones and all that. So this is what we have to go by. But a more recent history that we can go into is the Spanish conquest of the Americas. And for that, I want to refer to this website which quotes this book, which goes into detail of, just how terrible um, the slavery that the natives went through here. All right, not just the slavery, but the horrible conditions, genocides, and all these terrible things they did to us, which is right on point with what they did to you Southern kingdoms, man. Okay, I'm gonna just go ahead and read this title. Okay, because when Christopher Columbus came over here, all right, he like the scriptures say, he had war in his heart, man. He wasn't coming over here to befriend us and make treaties like they teach you in school, man. You see, the truth is, he came over here with hatred, man, that perpetual hatred. The same way he hates you so called blacks, the same way he hates the Latinos and Native Americans, all right? So it reads, they devised a way to hang natives and burn them alive simultaneously. Here's a depiction of what that looked like, man. Yep, that's so called Hispanics and Native Americans, man. All right? Because remember, the natives of the Americas include North America, South America, Central America, the Caribbean islands, okay, the West Indies, all right, Jamaica, Haiti, all right, or Salakia, not necessarily Haiti, but yeah, there were natives there too. But anyway, um, shit, I'm losing my place. There we go. So it says they devised a way to hang natives and burn them alive simultaneously. And this is a quote from the American Holocaust, The Conquest of the New World. All right, which y'all could go into that, and it talks about numbers in the hundreds of millions of natives, and which, yeah, that's not just Native America, that's also the Hispanics, right? Because back then they were known as natives. Okay, we were all natives to this land, right? So basically, there was numbers, I believe, in the hundreds of millions of death. Okay, all right. So if that's not under the curses, then I don't know what is. Look at this, man. If that's not under the curses, I don't know what is. Let's read it. It says, the conquistadors often devised ways to make the demise of native peoples as elaborate and painful as possible. In the book American Holocaust, The Conquest of the New World, Las Casas is quoted as saying, they built a long gibbet, low enough for the toes to touch the ground and prevent strangling, and hanged 13 natives at a time in honor of Christ our Savior and the 12 apostles. All right, showing you the same way that they brought that plantation Christianity to the Southern Kingdom. Hey, they brought that same plantation Christianity to the Northern Kingdom, man. All right, because we already knew the scriptures and we already knew the truth. All right, but what they did was they brought their plantation Christianity over there. You see? And here's another example of how horrible. Oh, actually, let's keep reading. It says, then once the natives were near their end, straw was wrapped around their torn bodies and they were burned alive. You see this? I want you to picture this and tell me that so-called Latinos and Native Americans are not under the curses, man. All right? Look at Native Americans today, man. They live in reservations, man. All right? And where these Latino tribes, man, they over there in the hood with Jake, man. All right, let's keep going. Let's read another one. It says they took the lives of newborn babies, right? So, oftentimes the Southern Kingdom will mention how the so-called white man, Esau, right? They fed their babies to alligators, all right? Well, here's a similar thing they did to us. It says the conquistadors' brutality wasn't limited to native soldiers or even adults. According to contemporary reports by Spanish priest Fray Bartolomé de las Casas, they snatched young babies from the mother's breasts and then dashed out the brains of those innocent against the rocks. Right? So you can see it in the picture, right? Another source says they snatched children from infants from their mother's breasts and dashed their heads against rocks. Okay, so you can see him grabbing up a baby and getting ready to swing him like an axe head first into a fucking boulder, man. This was very commonplace because, it was described like almost like an attempted genocide, man. All right, and of course they enslaved them too. But let's keep going. It says, others they cast into rivers, scoffing and jeering them, and called upon their bodies when falling with derision. The true testimony of their cruelty to come to them, and inhumanely exposing others to their merciless swords, together with the mothers that gave them life. You see? Look at this. Oh, yeah, I remember reading this in another one. It says, they threw native people into pits and left them to perish. The Spanish conquistadors would dig large pits and fill them with sharp stakes. Then pregnant and confined women, children, old men, as many as they could capture, were thrown into the pits and left there, often impaled on the stakes, until the pits were filled and everyone had perished. You see? They didn't even kill them first. They threw them into those sharp pits where their organs got gouged out and they were all stuck in there together. And then they would just bury them in there, man. You see? Not under the curses, my ass, man. All right? That's why I say, man, you can't be simple out here. All right? You got to look into the history, man. You see, there's a group of us that says, right, because I don't know what group this lady is from. She sounds like she's probably a Yah Israelite, you know, which they believe that the only Israelites are black people, so-called black people. All right, well, you know, you asking me to prove it. Why don't you disprove it, man? Okay, the history is out there. All right, this is you know, not anything like too hard to find. You could just Google this, how bad was the Spanish conquest? And it'll tell you, man. All right, how long did they serve slavery? Let's look it up. I believe, here we go. How long did slavery in Puerto Rico, right? Puerto Rico is one of those Hispanic nations, right? The Hispanic countries, right? Where the conquistadors came, right? How long did slavery in Puerto Rico last under Spain? Slavery in Puerto Rico under Spanish rule lasted for approximately 320 years. All right, 320 years, man. Okay, we know that the so-called Negroes in America were enslaved for 247 years, roughly. Okay, and I'm not trying to make light of that at all. All right, but just showing you, hey, man, we went through the same fucking slavery, man. All right, 320 years. From the early 1500s, when Spanish colonization began, until it was officially abolished in March 22nd, 1873 by the Spanish National Assembly, right? And then after that, the Americans took over and put us back into slavery, you know, into the fields, you know, to grow sugar and tobacco and all that shit. All right? What else? Another thing that's very heavy is the Taino genocide. You could look this up on Wikipedia. The Taino genocide was committed against the Taino indigenous people by the Spanish, right? So the original people who were here, they didn't call themselves Hispanic yet. They were calling themselves Tainos, or not us calling ourselves that, but that's what the Spaniards called us, all right? So the Taino indigenous people by the Spanish during their colonization of the Caribbean during the 16th century. The population of the Taino before the arrival of the Spanish Empire on the island of Hispaniola in 1492, which Christopher Columbus baptized as Hispaniola, is estimated at between 10,000 and 1 million. The Spanish subjected them to slavery. You see? There you go. Now, all right, we read in the scriptures that the northern kingdom was in slavery to Assyria. Then they came to the Americas, right? Then the Spanish came after them and enslaved them in America. All right? So, you know, this comment proved that they're the lost tribes. I just proved it. You can't say they are not, or you can't just say they are when they're not under the curses. All right? Getting your infants taken from you and smashed against a rock, getting thrown alive on top of a sharp stake or into a pit filled with sharp stakes, bleeding out, getting torn apart by dogs, serving of slavery, and having the Spaniards try to genocide your people? Okay, you telling me that's not the curses? They weren't enslaved with us. Duh, they weren't enslaved with us because the northern and southern kingdom split. All right, they were enslaved separately. Okay, and then now we're all back together in Babylon, as the scriptures say. Okay, but let's finish this up, and then that'll be it, Lord willing. All right, it says the Spanish subjected them to slavery, massacres, and other violent treatment. All right, another thing they did is they cut off their nose. All right, and another thing they did, I remember because I read this history. Okay, and you could look up everything I'm saying. They would take swords, right, and they would play this game, all right, to see who can cut off a Taino's head in one foul swoop, or who could cut off a Taino's hand in one foul swoop. And they would just go around like it's GTA, man, just cutting Tainos up, and there's nothing our people could do because our people had given them, knowledge of the land, and now they brought their armies and they were living here, and we're basically just sitting ducks. All right, it says the Spanish subjected them to slavery, massacres, and other violent treatment after the last Taino chief was disposed in 1504. By 1514, the population had reportedly been reduced to just 32,000 Taino. By 1565, the number was reported at 200, and by 1802, they were declared extinct by the Spanish colonial authorities, which that's not true. We weren't extinct. Okay, but it was declared. So what is that? Why am I harping on that? Because watch this. It says, however, descendants of the Taino continue to live, and their disappearance from records was part of a fictional story created by the Spanish Empire with the intention of erasing them from history. All right, and now we're going to go into Psalms 83 and 4. Okay, and this is talking about Esau and all these nations that are joined together against us. Okay, which actually I should start at verse 1. It says, keep not thou silence, O power, hold not thy peace, and be not still, O power, for lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. All right, our enemies and the enemies of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. It says, they have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. All right. So, yeah, these nations all come together against us and against Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. And verse 4 says, they have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. And that's why they call us the 10 lost tribes. And that's why they say that that we went extinct, that we disappeared off the face of the earth. You see? And that's why they call you Southern Kingdom tribes. That's why they call you black, because they want you to think you're from Africa when you're really the Israelites, man. All right, so you can see clearly right here. Yeah, they don't show that in school, man, because they want you tribes divided. All right, they're gonna show you that black people went through slavery, but then they're gonna be like, well, Latinos, we don't know nothing about them. They're not gonna tell you about them. You see, that's why Hispanic people have Spanish names. All right, they didn't speak Spanish. All right, we never spoke that language. All right, so now you got people named Juan Rodriguez, which goes back to the slave master that they had way back when. Okay, and this history is out there. It's just people don't look into it. All right, but yeah, man, I mean, or looks like it's a female. All right, there you go. There's your proof. All right, undeniable evidence that the so-called Hispanics and Native Americans are the 10 lost tribes. All right. So with that, I pray that was edifying to the hopeful elect, giving all glory, honor, and praises to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rachakodash, Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, from whom I learned this truth. Shalom. Shalom to the elect.